When I was around 9 or 10, I was living with my family in the fourth floor in a building located in south of Albania. From my room window, I would always see a private house with a small garden. I'd see a girl, which was overweight for her age, dressed with clothes that never matched or made any sense, and she would be mostly smiling or laughing. Those were the good days. In some days, she would start screaming and crying and pacing from one end of the garden to another. At that time, I remember, I could not understand anything but felt sorry, hopeless to help, and a bit scared. And with those emotions, I decided I'll not go to mental health. Hi, I'm Erinda Shah, Managing Director of Mental Health First Aid India, and with a career of 15 years working in the mental health sector. Today, this conversation is dedicated to mental illness called schizophrenia. I have special guests who are going to bring unique perspectives around schizophrenia, not only clinically, but as well with lived experiences, and as well we'll discuss about how do we live a life with dignity while people care or live with such illness. Before introducing my esteemed guest, allow me to bring some information around, very little information around schizophrenia. According to World Health Organization fact sheet, schizophrenia affects approximately 24 million people worldwide, which it is more or less roughly 1 in 300 persons. And this prevalence peaks at around at the age of 40. And in our country, the prevalence of schizophrenia is 1.41, the lifetime prevalence. So this is the information that I'd like to share with you around schizophrenia, but let me now welcome my guest and as well introduce them with you. So I have the pleasure to introduce Mr. Anerudh N. Hi Anerudh, peer support worker, SCARF Chennai. I have here with me Ms. Ratna, technocrat entrepreneur and founder of Asha and Atminer Bar. I have here with me Dr. Padmavathi Ramachandran, Director, SCARF Chennai. So, hello to both of you. Dr. R. Mangala, Joint Director, Media and Communication and Residential Services, SCARF Chennai. Hello, Dr. Mangala. And Sasikumar T, Chief People Officer from Grootan Technologies. Thank you so much for being here with me, for accepting to be in this conversation. And yes, I have a house full. We have an hour, and I'm sure that we'd like to make the best of your presence that we have in this session. So allow me to start first with Anerudh. Hi, Anerudh. Can you unmute? Am I audible to you?
Yes, ma'am. Loud and clear.
Awesome. I can hear you so well too. Thank you so much for being here and contributing to this conversation. I would personally not like to have multiple questions, but I'd like to follow a flow that you feel comfortable with. I'd like to invite you to tell us a bit about yourself, where you are from, your education, your hobbies or work experience, and then I'd love you to share as much as you feel comfortable your experience on being diagnosed with schizophrenia. Yeah, so to you, Anirudh.
Thanks a lot, ma'am. I'm born and brought up in Chennai. I did my schooling here. I then went on to do my engineering as well as my MBA. I worked in a while for sales and then in academia. And finally, sometime after my last job, I was between jobs looking for a job. I developed my behavior became erratic, my sleep became erratic. And yeah, I think my behavior became a little abnormal. I started having hallucinations, and I was seeing patterns, for lack of a better word, everywhere. And I guess, yeah, soon afterwards, my family noticed my behavior, and they suggested that I visit a psychiatrist. I was not sure, but fortunately, I think I made the decision to agree with them and go to a psychiatrist. And he diagnosed me with schizophrenia. And initially, I was with him for a year, and I've been with SCARF for treatment since 2017.
Wow, awesome. Thank you so much for sharing this experience with us. And definitely, I'd love to hear more about your experience with SCARF. I know you are a peer support worker there. What is that?
Right. So SCARF, along as part of the Pieces project, it's developed what would called a module where people with lived experience like me, we act as we give emotional support as well as help other people with mental health
Mhm,
issues to problem solve and think about their problems in a certain way. So
mhm,
that has been the goal of the peer initiative. We had training, we had a fairly rigorous training for 3 4 months at
mhm.
SCARF, and this was in early 2023. And for the last 2 years or so, we've been continually having peer support sessions for people with mental health illness at SCARF.
Awesome.
And
That's good. Yes,
yeah, it's
Anerudh.
been a great experience. And look, one is I think we can learn a lot from each other on best practices of how to cope with illness, what to focus on, and also listening. We are able to give time to people with mental health issues to talk about
Mhm,
uh, not only about their symptoms but also their hopes, dreams, ambitions, and how to work towards that.
mhm,
So it's been very fulfilling that way, and it's great to
mhm.
be able to be part of something where I can contribute back to society. So I'm very grateful to staff for this opportunity.
Awesome. That's lovely to hear that you are there supporting others, but as well benefiting in learning more from one another. So, was that experience when you starting and when you got diagnosed with schizophrenia? wa-
uh,
Was that
yeah,
some support in around you? Was it uh, what did it go in your mind? What went through your mind? How did you experience this sudden change?
Oh yeah, uh, I was all over the place. So I was not. I was, to be honest, I was under the impression like my family were quite supportive. I was like I could work myself out of this schizophrenia. It's gonna go away, or at least I believe that it would completely go off. And I personally took on the load of not communicating to everyone and saying that it's just something which will go away. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, that was my initial experience, and or it took a long time for me to come to terms with this is going to be a part of my life. It took me, what I told you, I joined staff in 2017, right? A good 3 years it took for me to understand that hey, this is not going to go away. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and acceptance helped me to then talk to other people, share my experiences. uh,
Mm-hmm.
so family was supportive, but there was a stigma of extending beyond immediate family. Okay, uh,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, let's say immediate family, parents, siblings, and all was fine, but going beyond that was, at least I felt a barrier. Even my parents are a little reluctant to involve the broader family. But
Mm-hmm.
let's say once after 3 4 years, it became fairly obvious that something had happened. So I think breaking those barriers, talking with other people, interacting with other people who have had lived experience of schizophrenia, being
Mm-hmm.
open about it was a huge burden off my chest.
I see. I see. Would have been tough. I can't even imagine that to let know people that this is a, a diagnosable illness. It's an illness just like somebody experience a physical illness, and we need to sort of go around it and adjust our life and our expectation around it. So I'm sure it
Yeah.
wouldn't have been easy. It would have been a journey that I'm sure as well you are sharing that in your peer support work that you are doing with others. So how much, to what extent, though I can make out as you're saying, but uh, what did it mean? Did your work got disrupted? What was the impact?
Completely disrupted, because and I have those symptoms till this day. Like, for example, I require more extra sleep, and I cannot. And my output is like, in terms of, if I were in a job, I would be given deadlines. I would have workplace pressure to deliver right on
Mm,
anything, projects, etc. So I still have difficulties writing and executing. And if I were to think of a regular job, these would be very difficult for me to cope with. I
okay.
think, uh, see, a lot of awareness has come in about depression at the workplace. I guess one of our other esteemed panelists, he's from HR. Sorry, I couldn't get his
Yeah.
name, but I think he would know better to. He would have a better idea of how. But depression has got a lot of support now. I'm glad. I mean, after all, it's
Mm,
definitely more public. Psychosis, I don't know if it's come to that level of awareness or understanding within a corporate sense. Or my special requirements would be that I would need extremely flexible workplace outputs. I wouldn't be able to deliver necessarily. Timings would be important. Like I do have an afternoon nap because I do feel a little drowsy in the afternoon. My work schedule might be erratic. So it's very difficult for me at this point in time to think of a regular job that I was doing prior to my diagnosis.
I do understand. When you say difficult to a regular job, we always mean that 9 to 5 and
Yeah.
with proper timelines and for sure that adjusting things around, just like we adjust having ramps or having other barriers physically being removed. I think that we need to think how do we adjust and remove barriers that can enable talented people like you that definitely may not give on the same time like the others, but can give an output and can be contributing to the session. So to the work. Yeah, I'm confident. I'm sure this is not an easy journey to be out of work market and to be willing to contribute at the same time. Anything that you'd like to share on as a strength point that has sort of brought you or made you stronger from this experience?
I think it's I removed the straitjacket of my own expectations or being slotted in or going the conventional way, and yeah, it's freed me in a certain sense. And let's see how it goes. I mean, and I do like giving peer support, as in I believe we can help. So it's a very different journey from what I imagined, and I'm a believer in the divine, so that also gives me strength. And
Oh,
I think in many ways I've done a lot of things which I would have wanted to have done uh,
that's
in a deeper sense. Yeah.
excellent. Thank you, Anerudh, so much sharing with us. More power to you. And of course, that's the conversation today. How do we bring more awareness? How do we change those barriers? How do we bring more thought process and discussion in corporates, in other workplaces or community, in enabling everyone in using their strength rather than their weakness? So thanks a lot. And I would like to draw the attention, Miss Ratna. Thank you so much for being here. It was a pleasure to meet with you early this week and to hear your story. So, what I've done, I've sort of summarized a bit and allow me and let me know if I'm correct. So, what I've understood is that 3 decades back, your brother was diagnosed with schizophrenia, and you have been his carer since then. Now, in your journey to support your brother, you felt there is a need for more dignified life for him, but not only him, isn't it? And as a result of this, you have set out several initiatives to assure more community oriented services for them and care, but as well generate incomes, making them employable, which would mean to live a better life with much more dignity. So I'd like to personally really thank you for all the energy, all the sacrifices and the energy that you have put behind this to make a difference to your brother, but as well to others in community. So I have 2 questions for you, and the first one might be a bit personal, but please share as much as you feel comfortable. What it is like to be a carer for a person who is diagnosed with severe mental illness like schizophrenia. So how much from yourself do you have to give in this? You are mute. A moment, Ratna, Miss Ratna.
Is
Yes.
it okay now?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah. It's my story is very different because I come from a place which is little backward, you know. It is a holy city of Prayag, where the awareness is very, very poor. So, you know, for me, I was having my own family. I was happy, but my parents who were aged, who could not cope up with his illness, and they were groping in the dark what is wrong with him. Actually, it took us so much time, about 10
Mhm.
years we wasted to even understand what's wrong with him. Then when I brought him, the trauma I went through seeing that. And then I came to Chennai and, landed up with I met Dr. Shah Menon in Scarf. I went to her house. She used to see the patients over there. And she assured me that she said, see, he's suffering from a disease. So because we used to be always, we did not know why is he doing a particular thing. He's educated boy. Why is he doing all these things? And we were sure that he's doing it on purpose because he doesn't want to work. That is a perception you hold when you meet a person suffering from schizophrenia. So but then she said, no, he's sick. So once we were on board with the whole family, was on board with his sickness, then the whole perception changed, my thinking changed. And we started looking, we started listening to him. What is he saying? The trauma which we were all going through converted into compassion. I used to think, what is wrong with poor thing? I used to feel very sorry for him. And then I requested Dr. Menon that I want to put him somewhere he can spend the whole day, and because I was not able to keep him in my house. My house means me, my husband, and my children, not my parents. And so she sent me to Scarf. And Scarf, as you say, I went to Scarf, and it was, this, I met so many people there. I met so many families there. And there I realized it was so comforting. And I realized that their stories are much more problematic than mine. So and I started feeling that, there, I also met some patients over there, users. I saw them, and I see, because once, I was sitting there because it became the Scarf. I started liking it so much because I wanted to come out of the problems I was in. I used to go there and I used to feel all the people there. I used to sit with them, talk to them in their lobby. It was in Ananagar that time. And there, I felt that, I started healing actually. I felt that, all my problems my trauma is coming down, because I am seeing people who are in a much difficult situation. And then, so what happened, then this is a little prolonging it, maybe wasting your time. Then I went home and I thought, once I was sure that this is what it is, I was very sure that, this is the path I have to take. I went home and did a closure to my life, a very toxic life I was in. I closed that chapter of my life and moved in with my parents. And from there, I thought, that I have to do something, not for myself, for my brother, and also for there's so many, who I felt were contributed to me, emotionally. So I was already in work. I resigned from there and started my own independent unit where nobody can say anything to me, whom I employ, what I do. I do what I want to do. And I put my brother to work there. And I saw him, he did so well, actually. He did so well. So then I started thinking, if he can do so well. I saw so many in Scarf who are much better than him, you know. So I felt, if he can do, why can't they also do? So I
Yes,
went
yes.
back to Scarf. Yeah. And I told them that, look, I want to do something. You please send 2 more people. So like that it started. I started thinking more and more on those lines. And I also used to feel, I attend so many this panel discussions and so many lectures and all that. Everybody says, we have to mainstream these people. We have to do that. But I was wondering that nobody says how. What is the solution?
And do
Everybody
it
talks.
actually. And do it actually.
Huh? Everybody with good intentions, we have to mainstream them, but how? Not like not putting them in institutions and giving them some small vocational trainings will not help. They have to be brought out. They must have exposure to the people, general, to the society. And the stigma. one more thing I must tell you, the stigma, first family has to shake out the stigma from their minds. We were living in huge stigma. Whenever anybody came home, we used to put him in a room. We used to say, don't come out. You know, that those things really, that guilt, till today I carry that guilt. That why did I do those things, you know? It'll go with my grave only, but I was very, very sad. So
Yeah.
pleading eyes of my brother, you know, anyway, now to after that, you know, to hell with the stigma, we took him everywhere. Every function, everywhere, he is with me. The problem, you know, see, like the problem with him is that, you know, we don't have to navigate his day-to-day living and all that. He does exceedingly well, independent, but he has got some problems. He can't live alone independently. He is very worried about his health, and for that, he's anybody he says any eating any medicines, he starts eating that. You know, it's a very scary situation. And he explains, look, if he's headache, suppose I have headache, then what will I do? So for that I eat. He eats before that.
I
So
see. Okay.
so
It needs your presence. That's
hmm?
what I understand. It needs your presence. It needs your
it,
care.
it needs you know, not to day living, but it needs, you have to be little alert. And
I learned
recently,
about it.
last 6 7 years back, he started getting into panic attacks. Again, it's concerning his health. He thinks something is going to happen to him, and then his pulse starts racing to 150 160.
I see.
That is very alarming.
It
So
becomes more complex then with multiple
yes,
other mental illness.
absolutely. So
Absolutely.
first
So
time
what?
it,
Yes. So what I heard from you is that your life completely changed.
sorry.
Your life completely changed.
It did. It's my life completely changed, and I became very peaceful. I
I,
was very traumatized. I'm telling
I
you,
see.
I cannot tell you the trauma I went through. And once got into this, I was very peaceful because I felt that I'm doing something good to somebody else's life. It brings so much peace. And then from scarf only, you know, the scarf doctors and all that, Dr. Menon, under her leadership, they used to see all these families, all of us talking and all that. And they said, see, you must have a voice of your own. You
Yes.
must form an association and become an independent voice and
Okay.
become partner in the treatment of mental illness, because
Awesome.
families are very important part of this the whole thing. So then we started this, we formed it was done in scarf only, that Asha was conceptualized.
Hmm.
And yeah, and there only we started meeting, and we didn't know anything how to have a self-help group. All those things we learned later. As the
Mm-hmm.
time passed, we learned,
Mm-hmm.
you know. In fact, I want to tell you, none of the founding members are alive today. I'm the only one living.
Wish you a very long life, and
Thank you.
definitely it's a journey that really changes once you have a person that you really need to take care. The carer's mental health as well, carer's life changes from quite significantly, and that's what you witness. But with your experience, your keen eye to see that people with schizophrenia need to work, need to be part of
Of
uh,
course.
force, need to contribute, to be active. Just I'll make a very straight question to you because definitely as Mental Health First Aid India, we address a lot of work with corporates. So my question to you, are people diagnosed with schizophrenia employable?
Uh,
What your experience says
no,
so
no,
that
I'm,
we
I'm,
answer
I'm
to
giving you a very
the human
straightforward answer.
resources questions and
I'm
doubts that
giving,
they have.
I'm giving you a very straightforward answer.
Yes, I need that too.
Yeah, I'm telling you, see, we employed people. Even now, about 5 people are working in my factory.
Mhm.
And I went to so many of friends of mine, and I told them, look, here people are, you know, they're doing such good work. You also come sometimes and meet them. Why
Mhm.
don't you give employment to one or two of our people in from Asha? and all that, you know. So they were not very, the stigma is so huge. They immediately say, no, 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 we'll buy the all consumables
Products.
from your
Yeah.
shops. So we run the shops. So that is why we started small shops where we used to keep our people. I was very clear that they have to be outside. You
Yeah.
cannot keep them inside and expect that they become all right. No.
Mhm.
Even if they are very ill, very chronically ill people, we have brought them around. Only give them some, don't see, like as I told you, in the shops, what we do, we ask all our contacts to buy at least consumables from our shop. So with that, what that happens, because the markups are so low, we are not keeping perishable goods. They're small shops, so uh, the shops can run without any problem. But otherwise, employment is definitely difficult for them because we live with the very strong. It's a very abused disability and very misunderstood. Now, people who are with us, I call it supported employment because here they are doing exceedingly well, exceedingly well.
Okay.
The
Excellent.
reason is that the people around them are counseled regularly. The
Mm-hmm.
people they work with are counseled regularly on the shop floor, in the office, in the packing sections, everywhere, wherever they work. We tell them, you don't have to listen to them what they say, and don't fight. So it's
Excellent.
like that. Even if there is a problem, the skirmishes happen, we call them and we call the other person also, listen to him what he says. Suppose he is not doing well. Suppose there is a hallucination and delusions, those episodes are happening. We ask
Episodes
them
when the
to,
episodes happen.
huh,
Yeah.
we give them leave. We ask them to rest.
I
We
see.
give them break. So it
Just
is
like
called,
what Anerudh said, taking a break, giving some adjustment in time, not being strict on timelines, but definitely giving more highlight to the strengths, to the capacities rather than the concerns that might be associated with living with schizophrenia. So that's great to hear. That's great to hear your experience and the energy that you have put in this. It's a life journey. It's absolutely a life journey that you
for
are
me,
taking
it is.
us.
For me, it is.
And
For
I
me,
believe for many, you may know more than me. At least in my 15 years plus experience in mental health, I've been working in different setting, outpatient, inpatient. But I'm sure that it is life changing for everyone. And it is so much what you and Anirudh said, that readiness for acceptance and reducing and removing that stigma, not feeling ashamed and embarrassed,
no.
rather dealing with how much we support rather than dealing with what others are thinking. So that plays
Yes.
a huge role in having the journey much more smoother. So thank you so much, Ratna, for sharing your experience with us. I would now quickly like to uh, talk to Dr. Padmavathi. So I'm so glad to meet you again. I've met you when years back. I'm now more than 15 years in India, basically in Chennai. And I'm so glad too that I got to know Scarf. And I've always seen, and I see Scarf as a very iconic and stoic service, which has been there for 40 years. And I can't even imagine how tough would have been to start Scarf and make it thrive. And of course, yet how life-changing for thousands of people who needed support with mental illness. When 40 years, imagine what would have been in 40 years, how taboo the thought around mental illness would have been. Now, for my curiosity and others, the name of the organization is Schizophrenia Research Foundation. When I started Mental Health First Aid India and I was talking to people around and I was saying like, it's good to have training and education around mental health. People say like, can you change that name? Can we make it a bit more beautiful, like emotional or something? Now imagine to dare 40 years back to just put upfront the name schizophrenia. So just for my curiosity and I think from the audience, what was that that spark that insisted in having the name and focusing on schizophrenia?
Thank you for your question, Erinda. And before I go on, thank you for inviting me to be part of this very, very important conversation. I also liked it very much that you started out with lived experience, both from Anerudh and Ratna, and both of you, I think, have really set the tone for this conversation. So thank you so much for that. Now, to get to your question that you were asking, I actually joined SCARF a few years after it had started, and so when I joined, there was a lot of history that I was hearing. There were people who were working at that time who were, in fact, one was we can call him a historian, right? Mr.
Okay.
Raju was one who would tell us lots of stories about how the whole concept started and how conversations happened and so on. But one thing that I consistently heard was that there was no there were no two opinions about having the term schizophrenia in the title of the organization, because as Dr. Sharda Menon had said, she's the founder advisor, she was the
Yes.
founder advisor of this organization, and she would say that if people had to get to know about a very complex illness like schizophrenia, the name becomes very
Is the
important,
first.
right? And therefore, we were actually Schizophrenia Care and Research Foundation. That's why the acronym SCARF. However, I mean, because of, more because of reasons of registrations and being acknowledged by the Department of Science and Technology, we had to change it to Schizophrenia Research Foundation. In fact, even today we have a bank account at the name of Schizophrenia Care and Research Foundation, which is of course a very low key operation. We had to move to Schizophrenia Research Foundation, and so, I mean, there were lots of stories about how that I heard. And of course, after a period, I was also a part of the stories of, hunting around for space, looking for a ground to build building. In fact, the building where I'm sitting in right now, that's the headquarters of SCARF. Mangala is also sitting here, the same building. And this is where all our operations happen. And it was like, a huge challenge for us to go around asking for people to give us, we got this land from the Tamil Nadu government, right? Of course, it took a lot of effort, lot of persuasion, lot of, I think, the initial challenges of even having to cross the door to get into the chief minister's office to. It was the former chief minister Jayalalitha who gave this land to us. Many thanks to her. But they but it was a big challenge. It was not an easy task at all, right? So I remember Dr. Sharma Menon making those trips, Dr. Tara making those trips out to actually get this here. And then the next challenge was, somebody should give us money to build the whole building, right? And but of course, as a not-for-profit, even today we are going around with a bowl, right? The corporates and so on, and corporates, individuals, philanthropists, and so on. But the point at that time when we had to build this building, I remember we were looking at where all we can cut corners to actually come up with this building. The whole idea of this concept of having a not-for-profit for a major mental health problem like schizophrenia was, essentially the brainwave of Dr. Sharda Menon and a few others with her, which included, one Dr. Rajkumar, who is now in Australia, and Dr. Tara. And I remember the stories that they would say that people who go to the mental hospital get one kind of treatment. People who go to private psychiatrists get another kind of treatment, and there was no concept of rehabilitation at all. It was always medication management. People were given prescriptions and sent away. So it was Dr. Menon's idea that, you asked Ratna a question: are people with schizophrenia employable, right? And I think Dr. Sharda Menon actually has trained us to think like that, where people can work. people, and
Yes.
it's not necessarily always working for a living. It could also be even things like household work, right? So
Yes.
she was very passionate and she was very convinced that they could work, and that's the philosophy under which we operate. And Mangala will of course tell you more about our vocational services and so on. But coming back to the other point that I think Anirudh also raised was the fact that, it was very nice to see you give voice to Anirudh first, right? And I was really very, proud to be in a panel where, you have actually broken the so-called hierarchy, right? And this is what 40 years ago Dr. Menon would say, that, we need to hear the voices of people.
Voices first. Yes.
And I remember her trying to coax me into being a part of certain family groups and so on. Why trying to coax me was, I too got this idea from her. We should allow people with lived experience to speak. And we
Yes.
should not be the spokesperson for people with
On their
mental
behalf.
health.
Yes.
And yes, and today, in about 35 years time, 5 years ago, we had this whole peer support concept which came up. And over this time, we are if I can say, we are at a place where, people who take treatment from us are actually addressing us by first name. It's Mangala, it's Padma. And I think
Mm.
that's a really nice change that has happened, because we're kind of trying to break the hierarchy,
Yes.
right? And so that for me is a very, very important change that we have noticed in the last 35 to 40 years, where now we are, I believe that we are making a step towards listening to the voices of people who uh, are actually in the thick of things, as they say.
Mm. That's awesome. I mean, thank you so much for sharing us these stories of the initial stages. And of course, it has been tough. So you are a research foundation, and I always highlight wherever I am in every training, whatever conversation is, just like physical illness, mental illness is a medical condition and is science. It needs science behind it. Okay, so what research is saying so far around schizophrenia? People are so curious. In training, they ask, is there any specific reason about it? Is medication working? Medications seem to be scary. A lot of questions that people have and doubts around,
Yes.
especially severe mental illness like schizophrenia. What is research saying more today? And I hope I'm a partisan of community care, been so much part
Right.
of
Yeah.
changes around, but
Yeah.
I hope that is part of it.
Yes, certainly. SCARF has been committed to research ever since we started our operation. So we really have a long history of, contributing to global research in several aspects.
Yes.
To answer your question, what is new about schizophrenia? Why does schizophrenia happen really? I must admit that we still have no clue. We're looking at genes, we're looking at, the dopamine systems and other plenty of other neurotransmitters in the brain matter, and we still have no clue about why schizophrenia really occurs in an individual. And I think that contributes to the enigma of the illness. But I think we don't really, at SCARF, our priority is more to understand, things like pattern and course of the illness over time. In fact, I can very proudly, say that I know the person who has done the longest longitudinal study for schizophrenia, and that's Dr. Tara. And she's followed up people for about 35 years, and that's no mean task, right? And really,
Yes.
except for the initial funding, there was no funding at all for that subsequently. So I'm really proud to know that I'm a part of, I know her, right? So it's been really a tremendous follow-up study, longitudinal follow-up study. But then a lot of us have been involved in a number of areas of research, and largely many of them are most interventional research, right? And in a sense that we try, our goal is very simply to translate findings of research into practice.
Practice.
So for
Absolutely.
which, we need to know, for example, we've done studies on stigma and discrimination where, we've looked at what are the ways in which we can actually address, understand stigma in our context and so on.
Yes.
We've looked at how, this whole concept of recovery from schizophrenia, where, we're trying to understand how people, what do they understand by recovery?
Experience,
When
yes.
do they consider themselves recovered?
Covered. Yeah.
One area that we have not really made, we've very consciously not made any inroads into is drug research. There are a number of new molecules that are talked about in the world over on new molecules to schizophrenia. We have not really been partisan to that simply because many of these drug researchers will ask us to use what is called as a placebo.
Yes,
And when we
placebo.
know that there is a drug that can take part, so we didn't think it was ethical to actually take part in drug research. But yes, we are very well aware of what is happening outside in the world, because medications do form the basis of part of the management of schizophrenia, with
Yes.
psychosocial interventions occupying a lot more this. Our research, we've looked at disadvantaged women, I mean, doubly disadvantaged, where they suffer from schizophrenia or they are widowed or they are
Other
separated, and so
social,
on.
economical strains around them,
Yes.
in
And
addition to the illness.
right. So we have done work with them where we've had long conversations, qualitative studies have happened with them, and some of the findings of those research actually tell us that yes, not just that the woman suffers, the woman's parental family also suffers quite a lot, and a lot of education and awareness is needed. In the more recent times, we've also looked at trying to identify, the best research practice for increasing community awareness, increasing community engagement, right? Where we use different techniques like theater and so on to understand how, how can we make the common man actually listen to us when we are talking about schizophrenia, right? We found that even it's not uncommon to know that when people, when you are associated with a problem, you try and find out more about it, right? For
Absolutely.
example, if there is
Absolutely.
somebody with schizophrenia in your family, you want to know more about it. But what
Yes.
about the man who's walking on the road? He may not have anything to do with schizophrenia, but I think it's important for us to this man should understand
Should
schizophrenia.
understand.
For all you know, he might be a potential employer. He
Absolutely.
might, so we are into that frame at this point in
Awesome.
time.
I can assure you, Dr. Padmavathi, I felt that we do in our training. I have one chapter on schizophrenia, and we see the change in their eyes when we explain absolutely in simple words and activities.
Yeah.
And we have had people saying, wow, just like Ratna ma'am said, that I felt guilty, I feel guilty. People suddenly realize that whatever behavior they've had was actually not appropriate, not because they wished so, they were not aware of it. I've seen that change. I witnessed that change when we do training. I see people how they change the perspective completely when it comes to mental illness in overall, but as well schizophrenia as a severe mental illness. Finally understanding what a person experiences and goes through when experiencing delusion or hallucinations, or why they seem so aggressive. So that is completely it's complete change when we do this knowledge sharing with our training. But I do believe with you that it's not about it's my problem now because someone near me is experiencing, but it's everybody's problem.
Exactly.
And it's absolutely crucial for all of us to reduce that stigma. Everybody need to be part of this conversation and understand the knowledge around it. So
Yes.
otherwise, it's not going to change much. It's not about
Yes.
it's in my problem, so I deal. It's everybody's problem. So yeah, thanks a lot, Dr. Padmavathi, for bringing the stories and your perspective in the research as well. And I'll definitely move now to Dr. Mangala. I can't wait discussing a bit much more in detail. What are those services that people living with the schizophrenia need? And what are the most, what I heard Dr. Padma saying, that the medical part is important because it manages the symptoms, but the social psychological recovery activities seem to take a good amount of attention and importance in the recovery. So Dr. Mangala, how is your work at SCAF? What do you do daily? How many patients you see? And I'll be interested to hear on that. What are the activities that you provide?
Thank you very much, Erinda, for having me on this panel. And it was wonderful listening to all the three panelists. And I wish we had more time to listen to Ratna and Anerudh on this panel. Yeah. So, yeah, I just finished a long OP day today and before I joined on this panel. I think coming to your question, yes, what is the most important need? I think medication is the mainstay of treatment of schizophrenia. But then what do patients and families want? Everybody wants reintegration into the society. And reintegration happens only if they are able to lead as normal lives as every other person in the society.
True.
So, which means they are able to live independently, are able to discharge their duties to themselves, their family, and the society, and also, if possible, be economically productive and independent as well. So finally, it all boils down to all these factors. Medication will help them overcome symptoms and help them reunite with their family and live in the community. But then rehab is what is going to help them sustain that improvement and get back to their life, what they left behind before the onset of illness. And I think employment will be the last step where we talk about, which will be a huge step on the road to recovery, when people can feel better about themselves, become more confident, and also be able to take care of their family, able to take care of themselves. So I think that gives them a lot of satisfaction about their life. So that is where I think rehabilitation plays a bigger role than medication. But still, medicines remain the first line of care when it comes to schizophrenia. One of the biggest challenges is making families accept the need for medication, because many times there are more myths about medication than about the illness per se. So it is very difficult. People are constantly worried about medicines becoming habit forming, medicines becoming making them dull, making them a different person, stopping their brain from functioning. They have all kinds of myths about medication, which tends to make them stop medication and have relapses. I think from the days when Ratna's brother was on treatment to today, there is a big range of medication. There are new medicines coming up very frequently, especially in psychiatry, antipsychotics, and the medicines that the armamentarium that we have today is highly refined, because the focus now is not just on getting symptom management, but to minimize the side effects, which we normally complain about when it comes to treatment. Because most people, when we mention schizophrenia, if they understand that it is what you say as madness, the only image that comes to them is a highly disheveled, a completely disorganized, and a person who has no meaningful character to themselves, who is more of a nuisance. I think it is that image which still stays as a topmost memory. So what we are looking at today is most people are not like that. If we still find people who are disheveled and talking to themselves and walking dirty on the streets, it is just a commentary on the society we live in, where somebody who needed help has been abandoned simply because they were not supported by the people around them. But with the right kind of support, most people are able to lead completely near normal lives including education, work, and
Mm.
domestic responsibilities.
Wow, that's amazing to hear. That's more hope for many people who have their members, family members, or they themselves are living with schizophrenia. You said that you just coming from a long day of OP. Just for curiosity, how many of your OP patients are employed already, coming from corporates?
Yeah, many of them I saw today were employed, but then in corporates, I would say I will say about 5 to 10% of my patients
I
are
see.
in the
Mhm.
corporate, and
Mhm.
I think it is not because there are not many people who are employed in the corporates. I'm talking about only people with psychosis.
Yes.
And again, SCARF as an organization, the profile of people seeking our help need not always be from the corporates. It is from people from all walks of life.
Mhm.
To just add something more interesting, we have people working in corporates whom we admit for relapses in the ward and who
Okay.
continue to work from home from the ward. So
Wow.
you can, in fact, last week we had at least 3 or 4 people who were working from the ward. So it is, you can walk in and see people sitting with their laptops and happily working on whatever task that they have been assigned. But they are going through a relapse and they are hospitalized because we wanted to, adjust their medication or give some relief for the family. So it
That's
is not
great.
that people can't work. People
Can't
can
work.
work
Yeah.
despite their illness.
Excellent to hear this. It's amazing, but would I'm not too sure if you know this information. Would their HR and managers, would their employees knows that they are diagnosed with a mental illness? Is that shared? Is it something that done or not?
I think it depends on the individual who is the
Mhm.
HR person, because I have seen HR personnel coming along with the person who is experiencing the illness, discussing with us how they can
Mhm.
help and what they can do to accommodate this person. Yeah, I think when there are some instances where the HR person is not the one who can take the final call, they may not be able to support very much. But we have seen some extremely accommodative and
Accommodated.
caring HR personnel as well. And
Excellent.
in some instances, I think the HR is also under a lot of pressure for getting the job done in the organization.
In the
So
organization,
they may
yes.
not be able to help. But
Mm.
I don't seem to remember any very bad experience that has been reported by service users about HR. Yeah,
Mm.
but if it comes to immediate supervisors and bosses, again, the story is the same. There are some people who are accommodative, who can support them in their workplace, some who are not very supportive.
Thank
They
you
come
so
in
much.
all
Yeah.
sizes.
Thank you
Yeah.
so much, Dr. Mangala. And I'm sure the one that, I mean, it's great to hear that there are people working and managing to live with schizophrenia. But at the same time, they are very active. But at the same time, there are workplaces that are supportive. To the one that you say, like there are few or there have been any that sounded not so supportive. Believe me, it's just because they're not aware how to deal with that. It's just a lack of knowledge, lack of skills on how to support, what to do, what not to do. So out of that sudden surprise or sudden inability of being unable to manage is what that could have come from. But otherwise, I travel a lot among corporates. I see HRs taking a lot of care of their team with multiple different problems, and sometimes I feel like I tell to the HR, you are human too. You need to take care of yourself as well. And rather than being loaded a lot with a lot of stories of many people, and I'm sure that with some support to the HR managers, with the appropriate knowledge and skills, they'll be able to know how to support their team when they experience schizophrenia. And I couldn't connect more better. And thank you, Dr. Mangala. Now, this moment is inviting Sasikumar, who is an
Can I
team. Yes.
interrupt for a second.
Yes,
I
yes,
just wanted to add that
yes, Dr.
in most places where the decision to keep a person with a lived experience in the job comes from the top, it is
Okay,
much easier to keep them, help them to continue in the job.
absolutely.
So
Leadership
if
to be
there
the
is
top.
no support from the top cadre of the organization, it becomes difficult for them to continue in the job.
Absolutely.
The
It's
other
the
thing
right
is,
call.
not everyone who is seeking jobs with a diagnosis of schizophrenia is going to be constantly hallucinating or constantly having delusions. That is just an experience that they had as part of their psychotic illness. Most of them will choose to come to work only when those symptoms are under good control.
Control, yes,
So
under good control.
I don't think the colleagues or the HR should constantly be worried about someone talking to themselves on the floor, or someone not someone being very suspicious of their surroundings and things like that. It is not going to happen all the time.
Yes,
Even
yes,
people who do not have an illness can be a little socially withdrawn, may not be very comfortable getting along with a huge team of members, who may not be very comfortable
absolutely
talking,
not. Yes,
coming forward to speak their mind in a group. I think those are all things that are very common for everybody. It is not
absolutely.
specific to schizophrenia. So I don't think we need to view them only with the lens of a psychotic illness. And there is much more to them than the diagnosis.
Absolutely. It's just like telling to someone who is experiencing diabetic, don't come to office when your numbers
Yeah.
are high. It's not in their hand, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, and
True.
just like they take break, take leave to take care of themselves as well, a person experiencing mental illness needs its own adjustment and leaves to deal with their mental health. So, just inviting here Sasikumar, take your time. Do not worry about being 5 o'clock at all. I'm glad to have you here and to connect in continuity to what Dr. Mangala said. So, as an HR, as a people's head, and taking care of your not only in your organization but across the culture of HR, and I do stand with them because there's a lot of support that you need to provide to your team. What it is to employ people under the rights of people with disability. And to my experience across these 8 years, it seems like it's a bit difficult for HR and managers to have employability under mental illness. But the law says so that corporates, private or government, especially under with disability below 40, equal or below 40, are employable and should be employed. So what is the reality? How things paving in HR's rooms and managers' room when doing such employments?
Yeah, first of all, before that, it's really inspiring to hear the stories from all other panel members. I'm so grateful to be part of this discussion. Thank you, Erinda, for inviting me to this one. To answer your question, uh, I think even Ratna ma'am covered about that. There is a lot of stigma around it. Even I'm not sure how many HR professionals know this term now, because it's something that only very few know, only until unless if they had an opportunity to know about this. So disclosure is kind of rare due to fear of stigma, and it's limiting our ability to provide timely support. This is from the candidate side, and sometimes hiring managers may have unconscious bias or lack of confidence in handling such hires, because they always concern about absenteeism or erratic behavior, which Anerudh highlighted, right? So that often override potential. They too have potential, but sometimes, as a hiring manager, we think from a business perspective. And there are also limited access to structured onboarding frameworks for neurodiverse individuals, because most of the time it is very fixed one. But whereas those individuals need some different set of accommodations, and lack of collaborations with mental health professionals. I think I see that that can also delay the right interventions, because sometimes as such a professional I may not know the technical details of that. And I mean, to overcome all these challenges, I think we required awareness, more awareness with the leadership team, HR, and to all the employees. And policy reform has to be done, because I'm not sure how many companies having exclusive mental health policy, including by supporting individuals. And also we need good support from leadership team. I think again awareness is something lagging in the leadership team also, even though if HR knows, only if we get proper leadership support, we'll be able to go and execute it.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you so much. There is a lot to be done, actually. But what I heard the most, stigma, misconception, lack of awareness, lack of knowledge, is what is primarily the first point that I think collectively we need to address. And
Right.
this doesn't need only mental health professionals. It needs everybody. It needs everybody. And when I talk with corporates, I say it's not about who is on the other side. We are all in the same side. Everyone at corporate. It's not about just training on HR or training few people. Everybody in the corporate, just as for their rights to understand how mental health works, what is mental health, making difference between mental health and mental illness, are absolutely crucial. We don't intend to make people incorporate counselor therapists, but a basic knowledge on understanding their mental health and being able to self-care and know how to deal with that is absolutely important. And then only things will start changing, rather than being an observer, but being an active participant in reducing stigma and addressing concerns at early stages. So this is awesome. I can't thank you enough for all the inputs that you gave. Of course, we have discussed few things among many other things that are concerning, and I'm sure it doesn't end here. I know SCARF is trying to organize as well a fair on employability, and of
Right.
course we will put it in our LinkedIn to make sure that all the HR sees. We are all hands and spirit to support the initiatives around it, but more preparedness, more readiness to be out there. Thank you, Anerudh, a lot for being with us. So proud of you talking around your experience and sharing it with us. Thank you, Ratna, for bringing yourself, your entire energy that you have put in supporting people, and Dr. Padmavathi and Mangala, that you are there in the front line every day, seeing the reality, supporting the individuals, but as well their families. Thank you so much. And Sasikumar, as a representative of HR, I'm sure you have a lot of work towards it. So, corporates are a very key point to turn this conversation around.
Right.
One is because we have a large community, concentrated in community. So people say at workplace or in community. I'm like, it doesn't matter. They are at workplace, but as soon as they go home, they are community. So please consider them one. But at the same time, addressing a lot about conversation around mental health, and the ways for them to involve in this conversation. So thank you so much. Thank you to SCARF for supporting this initiative and making it possible. Thank you to my team that stands behind all this. And take care, and thank you so much to the next conversation that we'll have next time. I wish you all the best for being here. Take care.